Hello, my name is Janice. I'm a yoga therapist, and today I'd like to offer a gentle chair yoga practice. We're going to do a little bit of seated and some standing movements. You can feel free to leave anything out if it doesn't feel right for you today in this moment. So we're going to start with just getting grounded and sort of sensing the body, just feeling present in the physical body. And so I'm going to invite you to get comfortable in a seated position. I like to put a blanket on my chair, and I prefer to have a little bit of an edge, so my sit bones will be on the chair. This helps the pelvis tilt slightly forward. But just use your comfort to guide you in how you want to sit today. And I also would encourage you, if you can, to sit a little forward in the chair so we have a bit of room to move forward and back, unless you really need the support of the chair, which in this case, again, your comfort is the most important. So I'm going to feel the sit bones on the chair and just take a moment to notice that. And we're going to start with a little bit of tapping, and then we're going to work with the feet a little bit. So tapping on the body is great for just getting into the physical body, feeling it, but also kind of waking up that important sensory organ called the fascia, which is a network of connective tissue around your muscles, your joints, your bones, and this stuff is everywhere, and it really has a lot to do with our comfort and mobility in the body. So when we move it, we get to keep this this sort of framework in the body. We keep it more hydrated, and tapping works for that as well. So if you have an actual injury somewhere, I would encourage you to avoid that space or that area in the body. But I'm going to start with my open palms on the thighs and just kind of a little wake up this morning to the legs. And I might go to the back, and I'm really aiming for fleshy parts of the body, so not really bony parts like knees or elbows or anything like that. But just whatever you can make contact with here, maybe the outer thighs. There's lots of tissue in there to connect to. And then we'll come up to the sides of the waist and the rib cage maybe. And then maybe if it's comfortable, you could take one hand and just very gently, maybe if it's one fingertip, and just kind of tap on the chest here. So you have the thymus gland just below the breastbone here. Just helps regulate your immune function. You can go all the way up to the shoulder, down the arm, the other arm, under. And then last time, just kind of going back to the thighs, just take a moment. And as you slow it down, if you're comfortable, maybe closing the eyes for a moment. And just taking a few sigh breaths here. In the nose, out the mouth. Good. Just taking a moment to check in with your physical body in this moment. You might do a little head scan, starting at the head, moving through the body, just noticing if there's any areas that are standing out for you today. And if they are, send them some loving kindness, and perhaps backing off of any areas in the body that feel constricted or painful. Sometimes it's not no movement, but just micro movements is key. So when you're ready, if your eyes are closed, you can open them. And we'll just start with a little warm up for the shoulders. And then we're going to work with the feet a little bit, which we've been doing every week so far. I think this is number 6, I think. Yeah. So we're just rolling the shoulders, slide them up, back, and down. Now when it comes to the fascia and movement, it's your first line of defense, so it contracts before your muscles do. So if there's an injury or your body is trying to protect around a vulnerable area in the body, it's pretty common in shoulders, often there'll be some restrictions, clicky bits, clunky bits. Might not be painful, but for me, I can hear some clicking in my left shoulder, which is fine. I'm not in any pain, so it's not a dangerous range of motion. However, if I was going to access that connective tissue and really encourage it to back off and to settle, relax, and then it maybe expands a little, and then maybe we can find some ease, it might be around a smaller movement. So if I take that same movement, instead of going all the way up, back, and down in full range, if I go into small movements, things are easeful and a little quieter. And that's your goal today. I'm encouraging you to find movement that feels easeful. And that might mean leaving things out, and it might mean doing much smaller movements than you might be accustomed to doing. Good. Once your shoulders roll up, back, and down, elbows close, palms up, just to encourage nice open chest position. We're going to work on the feet. So we're using whatever you decide you'd like to use. Tennis ball, squash ball, rolling pins work great. And this is a dowel, so it's just a stick, basically. And I'm going to put it on the floor. We're going to do 1 foot at a time. The great thing though, for those of you who are using a dowel or rolling pin, is that you can do both feet at the same time. But just for our practice today, knowing that some people might be using a tennis ball or something like a squash ball, let's do 1 foot at a time. And so I'm going to just place my dowel under the foot, leaning into it. And I'm going to decide how much pressure my foot can take before I feel the foot tensing up. So again, that's that same idea that we're trying to immobilize, hydrate the connective tissue in the bottom of the foot. But if I go too hard, too soon, or too deep, put too much pressure in there, you're going to feel the foot seize up and it's not going to feel good. And then we're creating that little bit more of a tension in the body. And this is about an easeful practice. So if you have an injury in the foot, it might just be about light rolling and just starting to notice what kind of sensations you have in the foot itself. Okay, good. So let's just do 1 forward fold per foot here. So I'm going to, it's kind of rolling away on me here. I'm going to find a spot somewhere in the foot that I think could be an interesting place for me to maybe put a little more pressure. So it could be the arch of the foot, could be a little bit behind the arch or a little bit in front. Could change it each week and see if that provides some different information. If this is already feeling like enough pressure on the foot, you can stay here and just take a sigh breath. If you feel like you'd like to bring more pressure into the foot, we're going to add that little forward folding position. So I'm going to have my hands on my thighs, take a deep breath. On the exhale, I'm hinging at the hip. I'm leaning forward, pressing into the foot. Yeah, I'm going to stay here and take a breath or two. And I'm going to just see what that foot is feeling and how it's, what kind of sensations are coming up. If it's too much, come out at any time. As I press into the thighs, I'm going to unhinge to come up. And lastly, before I move on, I'm just going to see if I can move through any other parts of the foot that I might have missed. So the inner edge of the foot or the outer edge, whatever you can reach, whatever you can access. Okay. Yeah, and then I'm going to take a moment to come off of the dowel. My feet are totally different colors right now, which I don't know if you can see that, but it happens to me every time. All right, so let's try the other foot. And if for those of you who might not have come to any of my in-person classes or practiced here on YouTube with me, you'll know that I start most of my practices with addressing the feet, and the fascial layer that starts in the bottom of the foot makes up what's called your superficial back line. So the tissue that we're working on the bottom of your foot goes all the way up the back of your leg, back of the knee, back of the thigh, all the way up the back body, over the crown of the head, and ends under your eyebrows. So we can help that fascia lengthen a little bit, which could help with our hamstrings, can help with muscle cramps, can help with balance. So these are all ways to start to access both feeling the feet, feeling grounded in the feet, which can help us with the balance, but then also nurturing that important connective tissue in the foot. Again, if you have an active injury in the foot, I'm going to encourage you to be really gentle. And also you can say, maybe I'm just going to leave this one out today. You can always do that. So I'm going to find a spot in the next foot here that I can maybe add a little more pressure. I'm going to place the hands on the thighs. I'm going to take a big breath. Big sigh. I'm going to just take a moment here. I'm just going to notice how it feels to add that little bit of pressure to the foot. And then just taking a moment in your time when you're ready, pressing into the legs or the thighs, coming up. And then this last moment just to finish off with any other spots in the foot that you'd like to explore. Yeah. Good. And then taking a moment when you're ready can place your dowel out of the way, or your balls, just somewhere safely out of the way. Yeah, good. And just kind of notice the feet here. Maybe spread out your toes and place them on the floor. Sitting up tall. Take another little shoulder roll a couple times. Sliding the shoulders a little forward, a little up, a little back, and a little down. So think of that forward, up, back, and down. Good. Let's do one more. Good. Wonderful. So we're going to work a little series of movements for your neck. The first one is going to be from a supported forward position. So I'm going to sit up tall and I'm going to gently start hinging at the hip crease, and I'm just going to see if it's available for me to put my forearms on my thighs. If this is not comfortable, perhaps you're here with the palms pressing into the thigh bones. Avoid the knee joint, but the thigh bone is strong. It's your biggest bone. It can take the weight of the palms here and support you. It could be the forearms. So if the forearms are here, you could do it also with the hands on the thighs. This is a little more restful of the forearms here. You could just gently look straight down at the floor. And just notice how that feels. I want you to encourage the back of the neck to get a little long. Encourage all the muscles in your face to soften here. So just relax the face. And allow your jaw to soften, maybe letting some space remain for your back teeth. That will help the jaw soften. So slowly start drawing your chin towards your chest, just till you feel something. The neck has a lot of attachments here, lots of range of motion, and so this is going to make this stretch different for everybody. I'm just looking for a little sensation of lengthening. And if you feel comfortable, you might very slowly let your chin move a tiny bit over to one shoulder. Take a breath. Allowing the chin to come back to center. Pause, relax the face. And then moving over to the other shoulder, just a little bit, maybe. And back to center. When you're ready to come up, placing the hands on the thighs, pressing into the thighs. Take a deep breath. Good. A little shoulder roll. Okay. So the next movement for the neck, it's a two-part movement. Before we do it together, I'm just going to show you one little tip that can really help keep all of the connective tissue relaxed, especially when we're coming out of it. So the movement we're going to do is two movements for the neck. The first one is the ear going over, and then we'll be drawing the chin to the chest and then coming back to here. But when we come out of this position, instead of just lifting the head, which you could do, what I'm going to cue and suggest, and maybe you want to try it with me before we do the next stretch, is as your head is leaning over, place the hand closest, like you were lying on a pillow. So you let the weight of your cheek kind of rest in your hand, and then let your hand help you bring the head back up with as little effort from your neck muscles. So this might help us stay really relaxed as we come out of our neck stretch. So we're going to just take a moment to sit up tall, a little shoulder roll. Good. And neck, for the neck especially, the less is more principle is quite important. So I could go to here and feel a lot of stretch, but I find that if I go to here, I'm going to get more release, and it's going to be a more therapeutic movement than that full range where the sensation is quite intense. So again, I want you to really back off in this practice today. All right, so sitting up tall. Let's start with the right ear. So I'm going to just very slowly let my right ear start tilting over towards my right shoulder. Only as far as I can go without really too much sensation, maybe just a little bit of stretch. It's not too much for me on this side today. Relaxing the face and the jaw. Sometimes closing the eyes helps someone connect inward to those muscles. Sometimes closing the eyes is just not beneficial for people. So if that's the case, you could just keep your eyes, your eyelids sort of half open, and a sort of soft inner awareness or again, the eyes could be closed at any time you choose. So from here, the ear moving a little bit over to the right shoulder, I'm going to start moving my chin a tiny bit towards my right chest, just rotating the chin a bit. So now the change in stretch a little bit for me, to see if you can take a little soft sigh breath here. Good. Wonderful. So as we come out, first I'm going to just go back to that first tilted position. I'm going to bring my right hand to the side of my right cheek. I'm going to really let my head rest in my hand. And then I'm going to try to keep my head as relaxed as possible as I use my hand to bring the head back up to center. A little shoulder roll in between. And then we'll move on to the other side. So when you're ready, just looking straight ahead, take a breath. On your exhale, letting your ear move a little bit towards your left shoulder. Try to relax all the muscles in your face. We hold a lot of tension there. A little bit of space for your back teeth will help the jaw soften. If you feel comfortable in this position now, we go from just a slight tilt of the left ear to the left shoulder, and now the head is rotating a bit, so my chin is moving a bit towards my left side shoulder. Just till I feel something that is manageable, that I can breathe into. And I'm going to take a sigh breath. Yeah, and then I'm going to slowly turn the head back to its side tilted position. Take my left hand to the side of my left cheek. Really let the head relax here and use the hand to bring the head back up. Good. So we'll do a little bit more with the shoulders. That'll help the neck a little bit in a moment. Then we'll move into our everyday movements, the movement of the spine. You really think this, the main channel that's moving all the energy through the body, sending messages up to the brain and down from the brain to the physical body. So we want to keep the vertebrae supple, open, moving, and all the muscles and fascia around it. So key here, start really small movements and then just explore and see. We're only increasing our range of motion as it maintains comfort in our bodies. Okay? So I'm going to start with my hands on my knees. Now if I sit up really tall and slide the hands towards my hip, maybe even looking up a bit, this is the extension of the spine. So this is seated cat-cow. Now, if I slide the hands towards my knees and think of a cat stretching, kind of leaning into the back of your chair, chin towards your chest. Now we're doing our cat. So we're going to sit up and then rounding. And then rounding. Just really think of those hands sliding towards you as you sit tall, and the hands sliding towards the knees, maybe even stretching over the knees as you round chin towards your chest. There's a lot going on here. As we sit up tall, the pelvis tilts forward, the chest opens, the chin, the extension of the neck. And as we slide the hands forward, the pelvis tucks under, the upper body rounds forward. Get a little stretch in the neck. Yeah, just trying one more, and then meeting me back at this first position. Good. So our first position is neutral. So a neutral pelvis for everybody is slightly different. I want to encourage that little bit of a tilted pelvis forward, which is why sitting a little bit on the edge of a blanket might be helpful for some people. So for this position, we'll go into our first gentle twist. I'm going to take a breath in. I'm going to slide one hand towards my hip and let the body turn. You can choose whichever side you want to start on. On the inhale, I'm going to come back. On the exhale, I'm going to turn the other way. Inhaling to center. Exhaling to turn. Inhale to center, and exhale to turn. Following this twist with your head. So just allow the head to move with you as if you were doing a shoulder check in the car. Yeah. Just one last time. Good. Wonderful. Well, as you come back to your first position, we're going to do a few different twists today, side bends and twists. But for the next twist, what I'd like you to consider is that the head following the hand and the shoulder is going to give you more range of motion, less sensation of limitation in the shoulder. So we'll all do the same side this time. It might look opposite on camera, but it'll just help us all stay on the same page. So I'm going to take my right hand and put it on my left thigh. There. I'm going to take my left hand and I'm going to bring my left fingertips to the chest. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is extend my left arm out to the side. And we've explored this before, but if I keep my head center and I try to turn, I can get to about there before I feel some sensation of constriction, not very comfortable. So if I let my head follow, let's try it together. So I'm going to extend the arm. I'm going to turn to look at my left hand, and I'm going to follow. I'm going to let my hand and my head both go. And it's a dramatically different sensation and range of motion in my body. So slowly coming out when you're ready. Yeah, good. Okay, so for the next part, this is going to be a side bend. So I'm going to let my left arm relax. I'm going to keep my right arm either on my left thigh or just across the body. So that as I side bend to the right, I'm not collapsing over too much. So if your left shoulder allows, I'm going to extend the left arm up, relax the shoulder. It's going to want to do this. If this does not feel good for your shoulder, you could be here. You don't need to have the arm overhead to get the side bend. It does help some people. So if it's comfortable, great. If it's not, find a way to support that shoulder. So I'm going to think of lengthening the spine, sitting up tall. And I'm going to be bending to the right a little bit, up and over a tiny bit. And then come back. There we go. Good. As you come out, I'm going to take my left hand to the outside of my right thigh, and then we'll try the fingertips to sternum twist. So I got the fingertips on the sternum, and just to explore this with me for a moment. It's really an interesting thing to notice. If I try to take my arm behind me and twist the body without my head, I get to here, and that's about as far as I could get comfortably. Now, if I follow with my head and my neck, turning the head to look at the right hand. Big breath and starting my twist. Wow, what a difference. Good. Okay, as you come out of the twist, slowly coming back to center. Good. You just bring your right fingertips back to your sternum. We're going to keep the left hand on the right thigh. And just see if the right arm can come up. Relax the shoulder. Think of lengthening up and just a tiny bit over like a letter C. Really want to keep both sit bones rooted. Yeah. And coming up. There we go. Yeah, and then coming out back to center. So I'm going to widen my feet a little bit. Got a bit of an angle here. Might mean you have to readjust how you're sitting in your chair to feel comfortable. So with that wider distance, we're going to take both hands over to your left thigh, or you can choose whichever one you want to start with today. And I'm going to slide down the leg. This is the pull up your socks stretch. I like to do this one every day too. So a way to kind of stretch some muscles in the back. I'm keeping my head in line with my heart. So it's really helpful to avoid dropping the head down, especially if you have blood pressure or eye issues. Good. When you've done 3 on this side, we're going to try the other side. And so I'm going to turn the body to face the right leg. Hands on the thigh. I'm just going to go slow. I'm only going to go until I notice some stretching. And come up. Let's try that 2 more times on that right side, or whichever side you're on. That's it. Good. Last one. Okay, wonderful. Now, as you come back to your center, do a little side bend. So I'm going to sit up tall, leaning over my I'm going over to the left, but you could go to the right, and then we look like we're on the same side. Okay, so I'm resting my forearm on my thigh, feeling a little stretch in the side body. If you choose, the arm could come and slice around to add a little extra stretch. Slice back. Some people like to do the up and over, which might be interesting for some bodies. Or you might stay with the slicing arm, or if the shoulder on your right side was just not wanting to cooperate, you could just stay here and breathe. You're still getting the stretch. So again, sometimes it's about not doing something, but maybe doing less, backing off and checking in with the body, and come back to the breathing. Your breath is always going to tell you if you've gone too far. Often when I see people go too far, they don't even notice that they've stopped breathing, that they're holding their breath. So take a moment to check in with your breath. Can I take a deep breath easily? If so, that's a good sign that you're in a range of motion that's comfortable for you. So we'll do the other side. As you sit up tall, I'm going to lean over and let my forearm rest on my thigh. I'm getting this little side stretch. And I'm going to see if the arm can cooperate with me, come around. And it's a time to check in and just be curious. So it could be up and over. And if there is a shoulder injury, the up and over might not feel great. You might want to stick with the slicing arm. When you've done 2 or 3 of those and you're ready, we're going to come up. Very good. And as I bring the feet in, the next one again depends on the body, whether this works for you or not. If it doesn't, good opportunity to sit back, maybe even just do some movements with the feet. So I'm going to lift up my left heel, lean forward. I'm going to place my hands underneath the thigh and bring the leg with me. So I'm going to really hold that leg. Yeah, so my arms are doing the work here, so I'm not doing the work for my hip. Make sure this feels comfortable for your hip. Yeah, and you can do a little bit of movement side to side. You can do a little circle here. So we're really warming up the hip joint and the connective tissue around the hip joint. So when there's been an injury to a muscle or a joint or surgery, the fascia, the framework of meshing in your body, it sometimes gets really, really tight and stiff and sticky. And so these movements are really mainly to start hydrating and letting that fascia get some movement and hydration. So as you pause back at center, let's take a moment with the foot, little circles maybe, a little pointing and flexing, and then we'll just do a little nose towards the knee, just towards, they don't have to touch. I'm going to take a deep breath and maybe curling in to bring the nose towards the knee and coming out. And I'm going to take the leg back to the floor. Yeah, take a little moment with the shoulders. And let's see if we can do the other side. So I'm going to lean forward, lift the heels, and bring my hands underneath the thigh. And as I lean back, I'm going to bring the leg with me, and I'm really going to try to support the leg with my hands. And then I'm just going to start with a little bit of movement with the knee out and in. Good. And then maybe some circles. They could be tiny. So this movement is going right from the hip itself. That's it. Good. Okay. And then a little movement with your foot, a little circle if you can. Feel free to stop at any time, take a break, or come out before my cue. Good. And then sitting up tall, little kneeling or leaning forward, nose towards knee. Good. And then as you come out, foot comes down. Good. Wonderful. I'm going to take the hands to the thighs. So the rocking chair, just as it sounds, it's really about moving from the pelvis. So I'm hinging at the hip crease in this movement. I'm going to be going a little bit forward and a little bit back. So with my hands on my thighs, I'm going to take a deep breath. And then on my exhale, as I lean forward, hinging forward, I'm going to lift the heels. Just imagine I'm a rocking chair. As I come up, pressing into the thighs, sitting up. And then as I lean back, I'm going to encourage my chin to come towards my chest a bit. Toes lift. Just noticing this movement in the body. Hinging forward, heels lifting. Coming up, heels come down. Leaning back, toes lift. So just try that 1 or 2 more times. doing this one anytime you need a break. This is a really nice one for helping with low back discomfort, but let your comfort guide you again. Last one, coming forward and coming up. We'll just pause at center. Good. All right, so the last thing we'll do before we come up to standing to work a little bit with a balance practice and a little bit of strengthening would be a little bit more work for the shoulder itself. So the first thing we're going to do is just take a moment with the hands at your sides, just going to spread out the fingers. Yeah, good. All right, so you can curl your fingers in and your thumb and curling into your shoulder. All right, from this position, I'm just an exploration. Where do the elbows go comfortably? We are only exploring a range of motion that's manageable. And then we'll see if we can get the elbows out to the sides. Could be shoulder height, could be a little bit less. Could be quite a bit less. And some circles. That's it. Again, if it's like really just uncomfortable, smaller movement. Might not feel great making a smaller movement if there's an injury there, but it just should be manageable sensation. Manageable sensation usually is sensation that you can breathe into, that you don't notice you're tensing up and bracing in the body. All right, so we'll try the other direction. Elbows moving in the other direction. Good. And then the last thing here is your elbows are out to the side. Bring the elbows towards each other, chin toward your chest. And then as you look forward, the elbows can move back. Try that one more time. Yeah, good. Wonderful. And then you can allow your hands to come and relax here, shaking them out. Good. Ah, very good. Wonderful. So the next one we're going to do is for a little bit of the wrists. We'll do a couple different things. So the first one, I've just got my fingertips touching. I'm going to let my elbows just float out to the sides here. And I'm just going to find some gentle movement in the wrist. So what's so fascinating about yoga and movement practices is that there's said to be 80,000 variations of movements in the yoga sort of lexicon, if you will. 80,000, meaning if there's something that's not working for you, probably there's something around the corner that works. So a little bit of curiosity, exploration, giving yourself permission to pause and stop at any time. Okay, so that was really for the wrist, the forearm, the elbow, even the bicep moves when we use the wrist. So that's a good one. All right, good. So the next movement though is for the shoulder. And this one, what I'm going to encourage you to do is press the pads of your fingers into each other a little bit. And you might also start to feel like the muscles in the front of the chest start to activate as you push. You can actually see when I push my fingertips into each other, you might see these muscles kind of activate a bit. Okay. Then I'm going to encourage my elbows to move a little more towards my knees. Okay. Okay. So my analogy I always use for this is the old-fashioned dolls that only move from the shoulder. So I'm pressing my fingertips into each other. The elbows are gathering like there's imaginary string between them. And I'm going to move from the shoulder, like the old-fashioned Barbie and G.I. Joe that only move from the shoulder. Good. That's it. Let's try one more. Okay, wonderful. Now we're going to do the eagle arms, which is going to stretch all the muscles in the back of the shoulders and the shoulder blades. So I'm going to stretch my arms out, and there's many ways of doing this, but for today, let's try the hug version. So I'm going to give myself a hug, however that is for you. Might not look the same. And then from here, I'm just going to lift the hands. Now for some people, it's going to look like this. Some people, it's going to look like this. And for some people, their arms are going to wrap together. There is no one way better than the other. And in this type of yoga, we're going for functional, not aesthetic. So what it looks like between you and maybe myself here might be very different. but as long as we're getting the therapeutic benefits, what it looks like doesn't matter. So it could be like this. Okay? We're stretching the back of the shoulder blades. Now, you might invite the elbows to move out and a little bit up. And you might explore moving those elbows down. And if that causes you any discomfort, then you might just pause at a spot which feels interesting and manageable and take a breath. Good. One more breath. Good. Now let's go back to the hug and let's just do a little bit of that rocking chair hinge forward. So take a deep breath. Hinging forward. As you lean forward, your chin coming into your chest. Your heels can lift to stretch your lower back. When you're ready, slowly the heels come down as we come up. Good. Now notice which arm is on top. We're going to switch. So you're going to take a big breath. Big bear hug for yourself with the other arm on top. Sitting up tall. Good. Yeah, and if this is where you want to stay today and just do this stretch, that's fine. See what it's like to move the hands away. If they wrap, great. If that's a struggle, don't struggle. Okay? One of the main philosophies in yoga is finding effortless effort. So as you move the hands a little up and down, if it's feeling like it's all effort, then I'm encouraging you to back off. Or come out of something. Good. When you're ready, we're going to do that big bear hug again and lean forward, maybe the heels lifting. Big breath. Exhale forward. Heels can lift. Good. Yeah, and then coming up when you're ready. Heels down and coming up. Good. Yeah, let's just do a little shoulder shrug with a sigh. So sigh breaths are a great way to help release a little bit of extra carbon dioxide from the lungs, held tension in the body, even maybe mental frustration. I find I use them a lot in my day. And so I encourage you even to let out some sound. You're probably in your own home space, so feel free to make sound if that comes out. It can be really helpful to vocalize a little bit of sound. And we're just going to be it's a tension release. So we're going to tense up the shoulders on the breath in. On the exhale, okay, try 2 more. One more. Good. Wonderful. And taking a moment to let your eyes open if they were closed for that. All right, so I wanted to do a little work today. Thought we would do this seated. Sometimes I do this little lymphatic movement standing, but I wanted to offer it to you seated today as part of a breathing practice. So this is called the breath of joy. We're doing a variation on it from a seated position. Now, pranayama is the yoga breathing, and you breathe in and out 20,000 times a day on average. So I don't need to teach you how to breathe, but we can slowly work with these practices to different effects depending on what we're looking for. The breath of joy is meant to kind of energize the body, gets the lymphatic system moving a little bit, and that big helps release carbon dioxide and tension. So we're going to do a kind of a variation of that today just to see what that's like. It's essentially one breath, but I'm going to bring it in 3 parts, like little sniffs in my nose, and I'm going to be exhaling through the mouth. So the breathing part of it might look like okay, so that's the breathing part. I'm going to add the arms to that, so the sniff part of that breath will accompany the arms. What you could think of it as belly, hands come forward, belly. Hands come out to the side to open the rib cage. Hands float up a little bit towards the sky to open up the upper chest. And on the exhale, there might be a little bit of a lean forward. There might be a little bit of a swinging action. And so I'm going to just quickly show you what this would look like put together. And then we'll try it together about 3 or 4 times. The other thing that I mentioned with breathing practices is that at any time you feel lightheaded or it's just feeling not right for you, if it's causing you any agitation or discomfort, physically or otherwise, I'm going to encourage you to back off, take a little sigh breath, and then just notice your in and out breath. It's with you every day, 20,000 times a day. So if you just revert back to watching your spontaneous natural breath at any time, if any of these practices just don't work for you today, that's great. You can always do that. So I'm going to just show you what it looks like, and then I will cue you and we'll all do it together. So with my arms at my side, what it would look like, I'm going to slow it down first for one and sort of explain it, and then I'll do one a little sped up to more of the common rhythm. Okay, so I would take a sigh breath. So I'd be sniffing belly out to the sides and up, and then I'm going to and that's pretty much it. And let's aim for like 4, and then a deep sigh breath, and then just sitting to notice how you're feeling. So let's just see what that's like. Put my arms at my side, take one sigh breath together. And when you're ready, a little sniff forward, arms to the side, arms and up, and let it go. Good. 3 more. Last one. Good. And then take a deep breath. Good. Now, if you're comfortable with closing the eyes, after a few sigh breaths, if you do not want to close the eyes, you can just keep your eyes open and look softly down at the carpet. Just notice how the body feels after changing your pattern of breathing. And now see if you can just focus, if it's available, on breathing in the nose, out the nose. So maybe keep the lips together, a little space for the back teeth. Just taking 3 more breaths and see if you can just focus on the sensation of the breath coming in the nose and the breath coming out the nose. Good. And when you're ready, a couple shoulder rolls. Good. All right, so the next part of our movement, the last bit of our class, is going to be standing today. If you decide you don't want to do the standing practice, you can stop here. Maybe you just want to observe it, and so feel free to do any of that. I'm going to bring my feet a little closer to the chair, sitting on the edge. We've done in various previous episodes, we've done a lot of talking about getting out of a chair. So I'm not going to repeat myself too much with this, but important that you think of knees over toes. Heels are the main leverage to get you up. So if your feet are too close to the chair, that your heels are not on the ground, just experiment. We want our heels closer to the chair, but we want to be able to press into the heels. Then I'm going to hinge forward, 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 till my nose is over my knees. And now I can feel that there's more weight in my feet. And if I press into the feet now, up I come. Now, once you're up, we've been sitting for a while, I want you to take a moment, bend your knees, sink into your feet. If you're not wearing shoes, you might want to lift your toes, spread them out, place them on the floor. And then as you slowly straighten the legs, think of pressing down through the heels. Good. Anytime in this practice, if you feel unbalanced, I'm going to encourage you to bend your knees, sink into your feet. All right, so we're going to use the chair potentially as a balance prop for you. Or it could be that you have something in front of you to hold on to. If you had a walker, make sure your brakes are on. You could use that. You can use a countertop. You could use the back of your sofa. So lots of options. I'm going to encourage you to walk really mindfully at a slow but mindful pace for you, thinking of your heel being the first thing to make contact when you're stepping. Good. So I'm going to walk around and I'm going to move my chair. If you're using your chairs for a balance practice, you can come behind your chair. I'm going to move the chair just so you can see me, but please make sure that you have something nearby that you could hold on to that can be a support for you. It's always important with balance to make sure that you've created a safe area, and also looking around, like I would like, oh, maybe this rolling stick, I'll move that out of the way. Very good. Okay, wonderful. So we're going to take a moment to have the feet about a little wider than your normal stance. Something slightly wider. For some people, even wider is more comfortable. And I'm going to bend the knees a little bit, just a tiny bit, as if I'm sinking my weight down into the feet. And then I'm just going to slowly shift my weight from center to the side, center to the side. Okay, now we're going to add some progression to this. I've kind of named this the Mary Poppins because I kind of fantasize about having an umbrella that I can fly around town with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift my weight over to one foot. That same side that I'm on, I'm going to imagine I got my umbrella pulling me up. The opposite leg might lift, it might stay on the ground. So for a brief moment, I'm standing on one leg, I'm stretching, and then I'm going to bend the knees, shifting over, and you might not want to take the arm up. Maybe the arms today stay on the support beside you or in front of you, and maybe it's just working on the shifting, and maybe the foot doesn't lift all the way. Maybe it does. So shifting, maybe reaching to get that little stretch. Down and shift and stretch. Yeah, good. Okay, wonderful. As you come back to your center position, good. Let's just take a moment now. We're going to keep the feet a little bit wider than hips or hip width apart. Yeah. And we're going to do a little stabilizing exercise. So again, having something to hold on to, like a chair, could be helpful. So I'm going to shift my weight to one leg. Okay. And then the other leg, I'm just going to see if I can turn the foot out a bit. So I'll just show you. I'm shifting my weight onto one leg. The other foot, I'm going to turn the foot slightly out. And now I'm going to extend the leg back. Okay. So you might hold on to something and just see. Think of a figure skater kick. You could put your hand on your backside on the leg that you're moving, and likely what you're going to start to feel is the glute medius muscle. So it might feel like something's happening there. Good. That's it. Now, you could always pause at center, take a break. We're aiming for 6. That was the last one. Good. Yeah, okay. Let's take a moment, shake it out. So when we stand on one leg, we're creating weight-bearing activity. But if that standing on one leg for a long period of time is creating some pain in the hip, knee, or ankle on the standing side, then take breaks and put both feet down in between each movement. I'll show you what that would look like. So I'm going to shift my weight over to the other side, turn the foot out, and if I'm already feeling some pain in that leg, I might put the foot down, lift it to extend it back, and then put it back on the ground. So you could take that little micro break in between, or if you're just like, this is okay, then you could practice keeping that moving leg hovering through the practice. There's just so many options in these kind of movement-based practices. I'm going to do 2 more. This one is for creating a little stability in your hip, in some of those glute muscles that support the pelvis and the hip. Good. Wonderful. And then after you finish those ones, sometimes even tapping with the heel of the hand in the area, as long as it's feeling like a good tapping, sometimes that's helpful. You might want to try that. Good. Okay. So the very last thing we're going to do today is a moving tree form. So it's a sort of step by step, and there's some options. So the first thing is feet are hip width apart, and I'm going to find Tadasana, which is mountain pose. We're not going to use any squeezing blocks or anything today. I just wanted to really bring you a practice that was mainly prop free. Not always. We do classes with props, but today let's just see if we can find our roots and our mountain. So I'm going to lift the toes, spread out the toes, place them on the floor. I like to bend the knees a bit so I can really sink the feet into the floor. You might even put your hands on your hips for a moment. Good. So as you when you feel ready, you're going to slowly straighten the legs. I want you to think of pressing down through your heels and perhaps activating the muscle above your knee a little bit. Good. That's it. Think from the waist down, you are a tree rooted down into the floor. From the waist up, you're starting to lengthen as if you had a string on the crown of your head pulling you up to the sky. Hands could come to the heart center in the namaste position. I like to have a little space between my fingers. I'm going to press the palms into each other gently, pressing down through the heels. I'm feeling rooted from the bottom down and lengthening from the top. Good. Now we're going to focus. Now, the dristi is a Sanskrit word that means basically where you're looking, your gaze. So with balance, where you're looking is really important. So I'm going to encourage you to kind of look somewhere on the floor, 3 feet in front of you. A soft inner gaze is a dristi versus looking at people who are moving or the tree moving outside. Find something that you can focus on. And I'm going to slowly shift my weight to one foot. And I'm going to lift the other heel. I'm going to turn the knee out. And then I'm going to extend the arms up. I'm going to bring the arms back to center. Put down. Pause at center. Shifting over to the other foot. The opposing heel lifts. The foot turns out. That'll turn the knee and the hip out. And then if it's available, we're going to stretch the arms up. Good. And down. Okay. And then the knee pivots forward and we're back at center. So we're going to try it one more time. Please feel free to stay with that version. The second version that some people might want to explore is that I'm going to shift my weight over, heel lifts. And for some people, bringing the foot closer or up off the floor feels all right. So we'll try that. If this is not for you today, you don't have to do that part. All right. So let's pause at center. Good. I'm going to shift my weight over to one side, lift the heel, turn out the knee, and then just see if the foot can rest somewhere below the knee. And then maybe the arms can extend. This might be more of a challenge now because we're standing on one leg. If the arms overhead is feeling like it's too much, just keep them at your heart center. Now, foot comes down. Good. Shifting the weight, lift the heel, turn the foot out. Feel free to stay here. This is still a great way to start building that foundation. Maybe you explore holding the chair just to see, oh, how does this feel to stand on one leg? You could have one hand on a chair and extend one arm if both arms extending does not feel good for you. And then the hands at heart center. Foot down and back. Good. Woohoo! Shake it out. Good. So we'll review a few of those balance practices next week and kind of build on them a little bit. And so we're going to just take a moment to come around back to the front of your chair and do a little just final seated posture and relaxation before we finish our time together. So as you come around to the front of your chair, just go with those mindful steps, mindful walking, lifting, moving, placing, stepping. As you come around and come back to your seat. And this time I'm going to encourage you to sit all the way back in your chair to be as comfortable as possible, or however it is for you to be comfortable. If you have a chair that's got, a footrest or there's some other thing that you'd like to do here to make yourself feel even more comfortable, please do so. Good. All right, good. So as you sit back in the chair, I'm going to just take you through a little breath practice to send us into a relaxation. So generally speaking, something that might be really helpful for you to practice if you're in bed and you're having a hard time sleeping, if you're having some pain in the body that's really sort of drawing all your attention, something that you can start to practice is letting your exhale be longer than your inhale. Okay, so generally speaking, I get people to start with watching their breath come and go. And we're going to kind of give it a loose count today. And so I'm going to encourage you to breathe in, Pause, and then I'm going to encourage you to exhale for 5 counts. Then I'm going to encourage you to exhale for 6 counts, and then 7. And of course, on your own time, you could go further. But I just wanted to give you an example of a great way to really get the nervous system to calm down. So as you sit back in your chair, you could have your hands on your belly, you're just resting. Yeah. And for the in-breath today, I'm not going to give you a count. Sometimes I might suggest that in some breathing exercises. But for today, I'm just encouraging you to take a nice deep breath in. Exhaling for 4, 3, 2, 1. Take your breath in when you're ready. Exhaling for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good. Take a breath in when you're ready. Exhaling for 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good. One more and you can. Inhale. Exhale for 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good. Take a big sigh breath. As you settle back in the chair, just start to notice your breath coming in and out all on its own. Noticing the weight of the sit bones on your seat, perhaps the feet on the floor. Noticing the head floating on your neck lightly. And your arms just floating lightly off your shoulders in any position that's comfortable for you. Just starting to notice the breath coming back in and out in a comfortable, natural rhythm. And perhaps you can imagine as you breathe in, you're smelling a beautiful flower, allowing a smile to cross your face. Just taking 1 or 2 more breaths like that. Noticing the sounds around you in the space you're in. I'm going to finish with a little bit of sound for you today. So just kind of noticing what you can hear. Taking one big sigh breath. Just thank yourself for doing the practice. One more sigh breath to thank yourself for showing up to the practice today. And thank your body for all it does for you. 20,000 breaths is pretty amazing. And perhaps you can hold in your heart and your mind one thing that you are grateful for in this moment. As we move into the summer months, I thought we could just take a moment to try the Lotus Mudra. And so I start with the prayer position and just let the opening of the fingers and the pinkies and thumbs stay touching if possible. So as if you're making an open flower. As you can bring that over to the, in front of the heart center here. Taking one more big breath. So thank you so much for your practice today. and I hope to see you next time. In the weeks to come, I wanted to introduce some TheraBand work. So if you are looking for one, please feel free to reach out. You can ask me in the comments where to get them, something that you might ask someone to get for you. They don't have to be fancy, and a lot of people have them. And again, I designed the class that you could do it with or without, but there's a stretchy band. And so if you do have one, we're going to try to bring them into class next week, and I will put out some reminders prior to class. So thank you for being here today. Namaste. I hope to see you again.